Okay, so we're going to get started this morning with Jessica Sutherland. Jessica Sutherland is the founder and CEO of Homeless to Higher Ed. Founded in 2013, Homeless to Higher Ed seeks to normalize the college experience for students ages 18 to 24, with a holistic curriculum designed to provide the love, knowledge, and skills that students need to become successful adults, while also working to break down the stigma and secrecy that keeps so many of those young people in the shadows. Before starting H2H, Jessica worked for the studio arms of companies like Yahoo and Amazon. And in 2015, she joined the founding team of The Establishment, a multimedia company committed to elevating diverse voices. I also want to let you know that Jessica's not coming to us as academic staff or as faculty. She's not associated with a specific campus. But the one thing that she has that really connects with the students she works with is her lived experiences. And you're going to find out about those in just a moment. Welcome, Jessica. Where are my California people at? Hi guys, you've all heard this story before, so I apologize if it bores you. Am I good? All right, so as Sarah said, I do not come to you guys affiliated with any sort of academia. I am just doing this work because I kind of saw that it needed doing. So I'm going to tell you how I ended up doing this work, the work that I do, and remarkably, we've all kind of come to a lot of the same conclusions. I've had goosebumps ever since I got here because we are creating theory, we are creating practice, we are creating a movement today, and it's been absolutely amazing. With that, I'm going to get started. Okay, I guess I'm hanging out at the podium. All right, so I want to start you guys off with this story that I call the Toblerone story. When I moved up to the Bay to start a company, I had this wonderful woman that kind of adopted me as her granddaughter. She was a Chinese immigrant in her 60s. And before she decided that we were friends, she had nothing to do with me. And a lot of you guys may have seen me huddled out in various places smoking cigarettes. And I used to smoke outside of my apartment building. And I'd always offer to help her take her bins in, and she'd ignore me completely. And one day she comes out, and she's got like her house dress on and her, her face mask. And she comes out, and she's carrying 2 huge Costco bricks of Toblerone. And you know these aren't cheap, right? And she says, hey you have to quit smoking. And I'm like, yeah, all right, whatever. Like, I don't need your advice. Everyone's been telling me that since I was 18. And she says that the reason why I smoke is because I am lacking something in my heart, and it gives me a happiness in my heart. So in order to quit smoking, I need to start eating pieces of Toblerone instead of having cigarettes to get that same feeling. And then she interrupts. She's like, you're not diabetic, are you? And I was like, nope. And she's like, okay. And after you're done, you have to brush your teeth, because otherwise I'm going to be creating I'll save your lungs, but I'll be creating new problems for you. And I just explode, and I'm just like, oh my God, you are so sweet, total stranger. I can't believe you care so much. I can't believe you spent like $50 on weird foreign triangle candy. Thank you so much. And I try to give her a hug, and she's like, no. Do not thank me now, because you can only thank me with your mouth. When you quit smoking, you can thank me with your heart. Now, that seems completely inappropriate, and you don't understand why I told you that story, but I promise you, we're gonna come back to it later. Sorry, California, I know you know how it ends. All right, so let's start with who I am. That's a cartoon somebody drew of me. My name is Jessica Sutherland. I am originally from Cleveland, Ohio, the suburbs. I am the president and co-founder of Homeless to Higher Ed, started in 2013. I'll tell you more about our origin story in a little bit. I have an MFA from the University of Southern California, and I have a bachelor's from a different CSU called Cleveland State University. This sucks. Now I want to tell you about who I used to be. That's me. In the 90s, I was homeless for over 9 of my first 17 years of my life before I was removed to foster care. I lived in at least 35 places that I can remember. That doesn't count all of my early years where I don't remember. Every time I do one of these speeches, I make myself write a list of everywhere that I lived in my entire life. And I start from where I live now, and I work back. And that's a lot of places, right? So I was a motel kid most of the time. I spent years upon years upon years cycling through motel rooms. We did land in shelters. I actually had my first period in a shelter on Christmas, which is just a Lifetime movie waiting to happen. Lots of doubling up, crashing with people until we burned out our welcome. As Justice said yesterday, you start living their lives. And my mom was a difficult person, and we struggled. And of course, I got this, she showed up randomly with like a 1985 Chevelle hatchback the day before my 16th birthday. And I turned 16 living in a car. Like, it became our home. So I was eventually removed to a civil guardianship / foster care situation my senior year in high school. And wow, that is a typo. That is a real bad typo. Sorry about that, guys. That's supposed to be unattended. And I was an unattended homeless college student for my first 3 years of college. Okay. Again and again and again and again and again. And I should just tell you guys how old I am. I graduated high school in 1997, so we're talking Clinton era 90s. I was pulled out of school again and again and again and asked, basically called out and said, we know something's going on here. I weighed about 90 pounds, which is almost half of what I weigh right now, and I haven't grown an inch. I missed my junior year. I had to appeal to the state to be able to progress to the next grade because I had actually missed more days than legally allowed to. But I still managed to get like a 3.3 grade average and graduate in the top third of my class. But I got a lot of attention. My teachers knew something was up. We used to have to fill out these emergency medical cards, and my mom would just put the phone number for Speedwalk, which was our local Chinese restaurant. And anytime I missed too many classes, my teachers would call that number, and it would be the Chinese restaurant. So, but the reason why I stayed is, again, I don't remember who it was, forgive me, but yesterday someone was talking about at community colleges, these kids would show up as soon as the school opened. They took the first bus they could get, and then they would leave on the last one. I was the same kid. I would get there as early as I could, do every activity. I had an inch of page numbers in every yearbook saying where you could find me, just so that I could be at school as long as possible and avoid going back to the motels. And so it was really common. I'd been in the same school system school district since I was in 3rd grade, and all my friends were there. And my mom, who, like Marissa said yesterday, was abusive. She put such a fear in me. She convinced me that if anyone found out what was going on, I was going to get stripped away from her. My father had died when I was 7. We were very isolated and estranged from most of the family. So it really was just me and her. And the fear of the unknown was actually scarier than the ridiculously awful life that I was living, because I knew how to cope with what I was dealing with. I knew how to cope with not knowing where I was, getting called out of school, take a call in the guidance counselor's office, and she's like, we're moving to the Motel 6. I knew how to cope with that. But who knew what would happen if they took me away? That was really a huge driving force, was not knowing what would happen. I was completely unaware of my rights and protections under McKinney-Vento. I doubt my school had a McKinney-Vento liaison at the time, since it's so woefully underfunded and was even worse in the 90s. And I was so ashamed. And I thought I was all by myself, even though I think I was in 9th grade, and we were staying at this terrible truck stop motel, and I was getting ready to go to the store, and I went around the bend, and I slammed face first into the coolest, cutest boy in my middle school, who was also living in a hotel room with his entire family, and that's when I started to realize I wasn't the only one. As I told you, I would lie straight to my teachers and rebel against my teachers, anything to stay with my mom. But eventually, they found me out, and they convinced me to leave. And the reason why they did is because they treated me with respect. They treated me with affection. They anticipated what my fears were, and they alleviated them immediately. They pulled me out, and this was illegal. This was absolutely illegal what they did. But they said, hey, we know what your life is like. Stop lying about it. You have 3 options. 1, you admit what's going on, and you get in the district within 2 weeks, and we never had this conversation, and you can stay in school. 2, we kick you out and you have to go to a scary Cleveland school. I'm not sure if I mentioned that I was suburban homeless, very suburban. You have to go to a scary urban school, which while we were in the shelter I had discovered was far behind the quality that I was experiencing in my suburban hometown. Or 3, you own up, you accept that you're suffering, and you give us a chance to make your life better. And they laid out a whole entire plan that would get me into a foster home in my hometown without missing a day of school. And I went home. We were living in a halfway house near the airport. And I waited and I waited. My mom came home drunk, and I said, they know. This is what they said we can do. And she's like, I don't give a what you do. And she left. And I made the choice. I walked into that office and I said, help me start my new life. And the next day, I was in foster care. And it really was that simple. It's not usually for that many people, but being given choices makes a huge thing. So that's how I ended up going to Cleveland State University. I ended up going to the University of Southern California. And now I'm here speaking in front of you. And now I want to tell you guys how I ended up here. In 2012, I was working at Yahoo Studios. I was 2 years out of graduate school. And I was bored. I was making more money than I ever had in my life. I had no worries, and I was just bored. And I decided that I had a happy enough ending to my life that maybe I should start sharing it with other homeless kids and let them know that they had a chance. And I started volunteering at the Union Rescue Mission on Los Angeles' Skid Row. And the very first day I was there to observe. The scheduled speaker didn't show up, so I ended up having to tell my story way longer than I just did. And I talked to 30 kids, and I explained to them that the reason why my life changed and completely transformed is because I accepted help. I opened up, and I allowed people to help me, and I could not have done it without help. And I closed it out by asking, if you think I can help you, please don't hesitate to ask. 2 kids stayed after, 1 followed through. This guy, his name's James. He was 17. He was living in the shelter with his mom and his 2 siblings, and he wanted to go to college. He'd always been told he was going to go to college, and he needed some help. So I took him on, and we worked really hard over the next year and a half, and we got him into 9 of the 13 colleges that he applied to. He did all the work. I just told him what work to do. He chose Howard University, which is an HBCU in Washington, D.C. Anyone a Bison here? Okay. And 3 weeks before he was all set to go, we knew he was going to have to take out loans. Unless you are the kind of person that can just like write a check for tuition, loans are a necessary evil for higher education these days. Sad but true. He was prepared to take loans. Unfortunately, right before he was supposed to start at Howard, right before he was supposed to move from Los Angeles to D.C., a massive chunk of his Parent Plus loan was denied because, oh wait, he's homeless and his parents are poor. So we tried really hard to get the school to work with him. USC had worked with me on some funding issues in the past, so I assumed that all colleges do that all colleges care. Howard really didn't care about him. They suggested that he stay in LA, go to a community college, try again next year, see if he can get the credit up. And he had already given up his place everywhere else, so he was really out of options. And he was so bright. And I just knew that if he stayed, he was gonna end up like getting a job at Subway, and he would be like a regional manager after the first year. And you can't walk away from that kind of money when you're supporting your family. So I, again, was the producer and quite media savvy and fairly connected in Los Angeles. So I created a crowdfunding campaign, and you have to keep in mind this is 2013 before everyone and their mother was throwing up a GoFundMe anytime they like tripped and fell, okay? And it went mega viral, like mega viral. Ellen DeGeneres gave us $25,000. The LA Dodgers gave us $10,000. Common was tweeting it. I pulled in every favor I had, and thanks, you're gonna find out it was not enough. We raised $77,000 in 7 weeks. We ended up on the Today Show. We've been in People magazine twice. It's NPR, anything you could possibly think of. And if we wouldn't have had this happen, literally none of you would know my name. I would not be up here. So I closed out his fund at, I budgeted $19,000 per year, and I closed out his fund at $78,000. And then we started getting advice about what to do, because I'm sorry, government, but if you won't loan the kid money with permission to garnish his wages for the rest of his life, I'll be damned if I'm gonna let you tax away $25,000 of gift that the world gave him. And so I was advised to spend a couple $1,000s and incorporate it as a nonprofit. So that's what I did. And honestly, it was gonna be super simple. We're like, all right, we'll just do we'll do a scholarship fund, you know, a couple $1,000s to somebody at my high school, a couple $1,000s to somebody at both of his high schools, somebody at USC where I went, Cleveland State where I went, Howard where he's going. Super, I just have to like raise a little bit of money and pay an accountant. It'll be super easy, right? But then, yeah. But so he started at Howard. I sent him on his way, and obviously keeping in touch with him. But I thought I solved his problems. Like, he's got all this money, everything's fine. I was more focused on helping him deal with the guilt that he was feeling from leaving his family behind, still in transitional housing while he was living in a luxury dorm, because that's the only kind of dorms they had. Worried about helping him transition into this weird open place where he had bared his soul, or I had bared his story with his permission, and he now suddenly was a celebrity. That's what I was trying to work with him on. And he kind of flamed out, and he really struggled in that first semester. And he comes back with his grades, and he's a little stressed out. And I'm just like, what's wrong with you, boy? Like, you got all this money. How are you screwing up? And I was very frustrated with him. And I didn't understand what was going on. So I realized that money didn't solve all of his problems. And as someone who grew up in poverty, who was able to get to a place where money basically did solve all of my problems, I was really frustrated with him. I didn't understand what was going on. And I realized that he had other knowledge gaps and other barriers, that while he got into a better college than I would have ever been able to get into as a high school student, studying physics of all things, which is definitely not my wheelhouse, there were still other barriers. So I started doing research, and I went to my local library, started looking around, doing all sorts of stuff. But these are the things that struck me most. 9 out of 10 of traditional, that's aged 18 to 24 college students, this was in 2014, failed to graduate in 6 years. And I saw myself in a lot of these statistics. Personally, it took me 9. Students who drop out are unlikely to return. It was something around 50%. I had dropped out for a semester that turned into 5 years. And then I saw this awesome graphic that I've never seen again. And the education levels were this ascending line. And unemployment levels were this descending line. So some high school had the highest unemployment levels. Terminal degree had the lowest unemployment levels. And I was just like, yes, education is important, if I didn't know already. And then the thing that struck me most was that the most reliable indicator of whether or not somebody will succeed in college is whether or not they have a trusted adult or a parent who's completed at least 1 semester of college. That was touched on yesterday by, I believe, I don't know, somebody in the last panel. Okay, so I started Googling and trying to find programs for him, Toblerone. I tried to find him some programming, and this was in 2014, and I honestly just couldn't find anything anywhere. And I found a school in Alabama that had a center that was serving homeless students. I saw that NACY had started a homeless initiative just maybe like 18 months before, but I couldn't find him any help. And it was very upsetting. And so I decided that, okay, maybe it won't be a scholarship fund. I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. So when I couldn't find him any help, I decided that I would try to figure out, as I said, I was really frustrated that he was not, all of his problems weren't solved by money. And so I decided to take a really hard look at myself and my own path, because I've always been very aware and very full of gratitude for the people that saved me from my childhood, but I feel like until this situation, I was unaware of how much help I got along the way after I aged out. So I went into an intense period of self-reflection. Can you see everything? Okay. I grew up in the suburbs in a very engaged K through 12 school with really supportive educators. They say that if poor people are able to integrate with middle class, upper class, and see other kinds of lifestyles, they get a better outcome in life. I definitely got that. There was McMansions all around my motels. And I had really goal-oriented peers who, even today we're all still friends because Facebook helps you find people that you only went to first grade with. And they're all like doctors and lawyers and stockbrokers and ad badasses, and it's amazing. And then I had really, really good educators and a community that was really involved in everything that we did. In undergrad, and I can't believe I didn't realize the value of this. I walked on to 2 sports teams. So I was under Division I NCAA guidance, and they are all up in your butt. They are getting progress reports weekly from your professors. They are making you go to mandatory study halls with your team. They check on your physical health. They care for your physical health when you're injured or sick. And they tutor you for free. They give you a lot of good stuff. And I was in the dorm for the first 2 years, which gave me structure and security. I didn't have to worry about where I was going to live. Again, I was with other goal-oriented peers. I had financial scholarships, and I also, was in the format of having, like, when you're on a team, there's a lot of structure to your life. But then I dropped out. Can you see the whole dropout period and basically part? Okay, what, yes? Oh, okay. So when I dropped out because I wasn't sure where I wanted to go with my life, and it was supposed to be a semester. And I suddenly had no adult oversight. I had moved off campus my junior year. I'd left athletics. I was, working in the restaurant industry, which is like, yeah, let's go get drunk on a Tuesday night because we made no money. And there's just no structure in my life. And then I had a medical emergency that left me, medicated, trying to get diagnosis and everything. It ended up being epilepsy. But basically, everything got in the way. And it turned into 5 years, and I worked, but I learned how to live in a way that I did not know how to do when I was 18, 19, 20. So when I was 25, at the urging of several of my employers, I decided to go back to school. They told me that I could do more, and they told me that education is something that no one could ever take away from me. They told me that if I got a degree, it would tell future employers that I had the ability to complete something in a way that dropping out did not. And so then I went to grad school after that, again, because I had people encouraging me. And I had the security of a full financial aid package. Healthcare was rolled into my fees. They had intense career mentoring, a really dedicated faculty that remain some of my best friends to this day. Again, goal-oriented peers, and exposure to like crazy affluence. Like, if you're not from California, they call USC the University of Spoiled Children. And one of our classmates took all of us home for like an orphan Thanksgiving, all of us that weren't going back to our hometown, and they literally had a servant in a uniform that just like hangs out at their house, and I'm just like, you have it like that? I had no idea people really live like that. So I changed my path, and I said, since nobody else is doing it, and as Sarah mentioned yesterday, we all were doing it, we just didn't know everyone was doing it. But since I didn't think anyone else was doing it, I said, all right, I guess I'll start a mentorship program. And that is how Homeless to Higher Ed was born. Told you I'd tell you that origin story. So today, I am not a parent, but I have 4 kids in college. So I'm not a researcher, as Claire mentioned yesterday. I'm not a researcher at all, but this is my hypothesis. If 9 out of 10 fail to graduate in 6 years, if we fill all those gaps, can we get them out faster? Simple goal, very simple goal. So this is what we provide. We provide financial support. Again, raised all that money for James. We furnish their dorms. We get them toiletries, we get them everything they need. A huge part of that is we don't just give them baskets of items, we give them choice. We take them shopping because a lot of times these kids have only gotten items because they've been donated, or they only get them because they're on sale, and they don't even know what their own tastes are. They don't know what they like because they've just been handed things. So I literally take them to the sheet section at Target and say, do you like t-shirt sheets? Do you like flannel sheets? Do you like high thread count sheets? I know when I was getting ready to go to college, somebody just gave me a basket of like extra long sheets and stuff like that, and they were all pink, and I hate pink, and I had no choice in the matter, and I refused to take them. Like I was waitressing and I had money, so I was in a place of privilege, but I gave them to a friend, and I went and bought blue because blue is the best color, in case you can't tell. We also provide housing during breaks and or travel where they need to go. We give them care packages, again, with choice. They get to determine what's in them. I have spreadsheets of what they like and what they don't. Very intense mentoring. It wavers out as they make their way through school, but it starts out freshman year. They have to talk to me every single week. I don't care if we're not talking about problems. I don't care if we're not talking about school, family, homelessness, whatever. We can talk about what we're listening to on Spotify. It's just maintaining that relationship and maintaining those touch points. It's a little less intense as they get older because the whole entire goal is for them not to need us. Somebody said yesterday, if I can't do something, I figure out who can. So we're not able to provide, I'm no therapist, I have an MFA. So I'm not going to be their therapist, but I'm going to make sure that they access mental health services on campus because all homelessness is trauma. It is non-negotiable. They go to therapy. We train them in life skills. I'll go deeper into that. What a huge thing that the kids say is really important to them is that there's no flinch factor. There is no story that they can tell me that I haven't either heard before, experienced myself, or seen worse. Like, there's literally nothing that any of them have ever told me that has made me go, ooh, you know, and a lot of times it's a different kind of ooh. You're like, ooh. And I really want to reinforce that for you guys. Don't pity them when they're telling you their truth. If you get them to trust you and share their truth with them, you cannot react like that because it pushes them away. And then one of the greatest things, one of their favorite things is we go on an annual retreat. They each get their own hotel room. We go shopping, we go do cool stuff, we tour one of their campuses, and they get to hang out with kids that exist in that intersection of homelessness and college, because a lot of college kids don't understand homelessness, and a lot of homeless people don't understand college, and it's really hard to explain and understand each other, especially their families don't often understand. I'm their trusted adult guidance, because it's pretty much just me, and there's unconditional, endless love. They cannot lose me. In a lot of ways, like I said, I'm not a parent, but I have 4 kids in college. We're filling a parental role, and they literally cannot push me away. I will always be there, and they know that. So along the way, I've noticed some common experiences and traits in them. One of the books that I first read told me about a culture of conscription versus a culture of entitlement, and it has a lot to do with the way we're raised. And think of a culture of conscription being an inability to challenge authority or the norms. You're at a restaurant and, you know, something sounds absolutely perfect for you, but it has tomatoes in it and you hate tomatoes. Rather than ask your server if they'll take the tomatoes out, you just get a cheeseburger. That kind of attitude. Does that click with you guys, or do you need, I have way more examples if you need more. All right. Cable company, introductory rate, $50 a month. After 2 years, it goes up to $150 a month. Culture conscription, you pay the $150 or you cancel it. Culture of entitlement, you call and you ask for a supervisor until they're like, you're right, we'll give it to you for $50 a month. Does that one work? All right. They have that same distrust and fear of authority that I shared with you guys that I had growing up. It's possible they've been given a lot of bad examples in life, if not necessarily intentionally bad, just not necessarily good ones. You know, pay the bill when they're about to get shut off instead of paying it when it comes in. They're very susceptible to outside influences. I myself, most of the changes that I made in my life, I did because somebody told me I could, not because I actually believed in myself. And those are positive influences. The bad ones are just as dangerous. They're very risk averse and they don't want to take a lot of chances because they have no safety net. We try to be that safety net, you know, especially on the financial side and definitely on the love side, where colleges are operating under the assumption and the necessity of extensive parental support. A lot of times, these families are burdens. These families are saboteurs. I have had parents that have gotten approved for the Parent Plus loan. Semester has started, and they're like, you know what, actually, I don't want to take that loan on for you. They've stolen their scholarship checks. They have done dangerous things that have actually have the potential to undermine their children's education. They have that history of trauma that I was telling you about. And now on the trade side, they're really ashamed. We know all of this. They make a lot of excuses for things because that's what they've been seen before, seen and had presented to them often by their family. They have this skewed confidence where they're just arrogant enough to have wanted to get into college, but they also don't believe in themselves. They feel very different. They feel powerless. They're fiercely independent because they've had to do this all by themselves, and they're not really sure what to do now that they have help. They're very, very self-reliant. They are the sweetest, most loving, gentle, wonderful kids. They send me the most wonderful things and say the most lovely things, and they warm my heart every day, and they very rarely break it. They're bright. We're not an exceptionalism program. They don't have to have a 4.6 and a bunch of AP credits to get into our program. They just have to get themselves in college. And they're resilient, which I hate. We'll more on that later. And they tend to be mature for their age. They're also exhausted, scared, and they're very easily panicked, which means they hit the panic switch if I'm not there to stop them. This is like giving up apartments and moving in the middle of a semester. One didn't get into nursing school at San Jose State, and she almost went to a predatory, you know, the bad kind of college. I can't remember the names, but where they do the predatory loans, the private loans, yeah. The for-profit colleges, yeah, and she called me right before she pulled the trigger, and I immediately called one of my friends who had done that same exact thing, patched in a three-way call, and they talked for an hour. I listened, and she talked her off the ledge, and she said, I knew something was off. I'm so glad I checked with you. And that's, you know, we stopped them. But you need to know that not every student is the same, and not every student is going to share all these traits, have all these experiences. So about resilience. How am I doing, Claire? Is that one centered? Okay. I've been anti-resilience for a long time because in my mind it gives permission for abuse to continue. And this came out of the Harvard Business Review in August, and I'll just let you guys take a look at it. When we praise resilience as a strength and a character trait that we want in our employees or in our youth, it really does. It gives a lot of us the attitude of, they can take it, why do we need to worry about it? And I say, screw that. Let's try to make things easier on them, because if they're doing this well, if they're surviving this way, if we give them a little bit more resources, perhaps they can thrive, you know? Instead of just getting by, maybe they can fly. That's right, I rhymed twice. All right, so common mindsets. I'm just gonna run through these. They think they don't belong in college. They feel like they can't do it. They don't know what to do in certain situations, so they panic or they do nothing. When one of my kids first got referred to me by one of her teachers, she was telling her about the program, and she was just like, I really think you should try to work with this program. And she's like, oh no, good things don't happen to me. There's no way that she would want to help me. And she's like, oh, I already talked to her. We're having lunch with her on Saturday. Good things don't last. They're terrified of making mistakes, and when they make mistakes, they're convinced they're never going to stop. They don't think that they don't deserve help at all, and they tend to think that other people have it worse than they do. They fear being a burden. They don't want to be like their parents if their parents are a negative influence or non-supportive or toxic, and they're afraid that asking for help means they're weak. They also don't know that help exists. There's so many times where I've tried to shepherd them to resources at their particular university or institution, and they're just like, no, I don't think that's a thing. And I'm like, okay, here's a screenshot. It's a thing. Go do it. And everything is so urgent because, again, they don't have that safety net. And this is their only chance to break out of the cycle of poverty that they're in. And whether or not it's their only chance, they certainly feel like it is. So we got all that one? All right, so here's some common knowledge gaps on the healthcare thing. They tend to be people that don't go to the doctor. I still have to be like, in a lot of pain for a real long time, and I have like platinum Kaiser, y'all, and I still don't go to the doctor unless I'm about to die. Again, we have them access mental health, because again, I will repeat this, homelessness is trauma. Homelessness is trauma. And then we try to teach them better emotional communication and emotional literacy so that if they've been in loud, possibly abusive homes, they're able to kind of transform that cycle as well. Sex ed is a huge part of it. We make sure the women are on the right birth control for them. We talk about consent with everyone. Everyone gets condoms in their care package and in their startup kits. And we make sure that the boys and the men and the women both go to get their junk checked out. Nutrition. You asked, I'm gonna point with this finger instead of the mic hand. You asked about nutrition. We take them shopping, we teach them how to do menu planning. If you're going to try to implement these programs, I highly recommend that you look at what Blue Apron has been doing in teaching the nation to cook. It's really teaching people to prep out and do the mise en place and have everything ready. We make really simple recipes, teach them the value of frozen vegetables over canned vegetables if they do have freezer access. And ideally, I would love to have a series of videos or maybe a simple cookbook that helps there if we get to expand. We work with them on money and credit. Their sophomore year, everyone gets $500 loan to open a secured credit card, and we make sure that they pay it off. And when it's paid off and to the point that the credit card company returns the deposit, they pay the charity back. They're ripe for identity theft because, hey, who knows your mother's maiden name? Who knows your the first street you lived on? Who knows what hospital you were born and what the name of your first pet was? Your parents. So we make sure that they know how to monitor their credit and not get caught up in that web, whether or not they have to use a freeze or not. I have been a victim of identity theft. My mom started putting utility bills in my name when I was 11, so it can be a nightmare. We work on professional development, resumes, interview skills, getting them out of that shell so they not work. This is big freshman year as academic, is teaching them how to break down a syllabi. We've talked a lot about mentioning basic needs in your syllabi, but what you have to realize is that if you don't have that person who's been to college, they're used to high school, where on Monday, teacher tells you that there's an exam on Friday. So nobody's checking in, no one's calling your parents because you missed an exam or you're not turning in your homework. You need to teach them how to do this. And then we teach them how to self-advocate, to seek help, but to push back, and how to say no. And one of our big rules is that within the first 2 weeks, they have to introduce themselves to every professor that they have. And they are so resistant when I first give that order their freshman year, because they're like, I don't want them to think that I want something. And I'm like, no, no, no. You give them your name. You get your name in their mouth so that when you do need something, they already know who you are. Okay, I'm really surprised y'all aren't clapping for that one. Okay. That one usually gets some claps. All right, so this is our commitment beyond resources. All right. Love won't leave. This is a forever relationship where it's consistent. You have to hire staff that is going to see these kids through. I obviously am running this out of my house, so I'm not going anywhere. But talk with Barbara about how she has lifetime relationships with her scholars programs, and you fall in love with them, and you build these dynamics, and they need to trust you. I speak their language. I don't come at them as an angry parent. I always try to come at them friendly. When they have issues and they're asking for advice, I don't tell them what to do. I work through every option, and then I listen to them while they analyze each option. I know what I want them to do and what I think they could do, but I never, ever, ever have to tell them to do anything. Their analytical skills are developing, and they're just growing so much, and they need me so much less, and it kind of hurts. We give them exposure to better life. As I told you about the retreat, they get to experience a lot of things that maybe they haven't experienced as a child. They all get one-on-one dinners with me. For some reason, my clients love the Olive Garden, They just love it. So we go there a lot. You're not the only one. You're not alone. Peer-to-peer camaraderie. In my dreamscape, when you guys implement these programs at your schools, you're going to have drop-in centers where these are communities. You're letting these people meet each other so that, again, you're having those kids meet each other who are both existing in that intersection of homelessness and collegiate life. There's always a space at the table for them. They cannot fail. Rather than kick kids out if they end up on academic probation or they flame out, how about we just focus on getting them to a better place and getting them off of academic probation? That's what we need to do instead of just pushing them away. I always tell them when I hang up that they matter, and they matter to me very much, and they matter to the world. I tell them that they can do whatever they're doing. They're never going to be a burden, and I tell them that I love them. All right, we got that one? Is that one good? 4 years later, our little cute sweetie that ended up on Ellen with me, he is on track to be our first homeless to higher ed graduate in May 2018. I told you we were trying to get him out in 6, right? That was the whole hypothesis. Can we get him out in 6 with these services? It's gonna be 5. So we got him out in 5. His family has not been homeless since 2014. And without the additional burden of loans, his younger sister has been able to join UC San Diego. Is UC San Diego here? Because I'm gonna make you go talk to his sister. All right. All right, 4 years later, student number 2, this is the one I pulled out that almost went to the for-profit college. She successfully transferred from San Jose State, where it's $2,400 a month for the average rent, to Cal State East Bay, where she is in the nursing program. She is on track to be our second 5-year graduate next May. Her family is no longer homeless. They were living, she has 5 siblings, one who has extensive medical difficulties. They were all living in an RV, and they are no longer homeless. They have this ridiculous house in Tennessee because the cost of living is so much less, and they haven't been homeless for over 2 years. So there's a ripple effect here. This one, who I haven't really told you about, she enrolled at a private university, a private college in Santa Barbara, and she ran into the same problem that James did, where her loans were declined right before she came in. And I saw the email correspondence. I worked with the school themselves. They said that they would find a donor for her and she should come on down. Justice was talking about how her foster social care worker just dropped her off with a garbage bag. I didn't do that. She asked me to attend family orientation with her. I was there the whole entire weekend as her mentor. We moved her in. 9 days later, they sent her an email saying that they could not find her a donor because nobody believes that homeless kids go to college. I saw the email, you guys. This is a real thing that a college said to her. And they were like, you gotta go. So I had to go and pick her up, get all of her stuff. She's sobbing, she's humiliated. And then they had the gall to send her a bill for $9,000 for the pleasure. And I shamed them on social media because that's what I do, and then she got the money back. I dropped her off with my sister-in-law, and because we had to find her a place to live immediately. We had her there for 2 weeks. I found her a group home situation through Santa Monica College, where she's thriving now. She won a massive STEM scholarship. She's pre-med. She won a massive STEM scholarship just this summer from SoCal Gas. And she is on track to, her dream is to go to Berkeley finish her pre-med, and then she wants to be a doctor. And so Ruben, I hope you're here, because I've been talking about her for 2 years to you. She's coming to you. Her family is no longer homeless. When she started school and all that was going down, they were in transitional housing, and they're no longer homeless. We don't have a graduation date for her because it's all pending her transfer. Now, I've been telling you guys a fairy tale, but this is real life. So student 4 was a street kid when we came upon her. She's disabled, she is queer, and her family kicked her out of the family basically, disowned her for when she came out. And she was a street kid. Her trusted adult read about the organization in Southwest Airlines, the magazine, and reached out to us, and she joined us. We got her into an apartment. We got her into an internship. She's in biomedical research. She started reconnecting with her family, but unfortunately, she struggles to maintain relationships, and you could possibly see why. And we've had a couple times where she's gone off the grid and out of contact, and we haven't heard from her since April. But we still check in every month, and when she comes back, and I hope she comes back, we're here. So we lost one. We did lose one. But I creep on her Facebook, and she's doing okay. So 4 years later, we have 4 students in our full service pilot program. I also, because I have been doing this so long and remember how it wasn't very Googleable, I'm hella Googleable. So every time somebody Googles homeless in college, they find us usually. And Dr. Crutchfield spoke to the fact with regards to language and what we're using, you know, these kids are not Googling housing insecurity when they're looking for resources. You have to have this stuff you have to have this language on your website. So what ends up happening is I'll have some random contact form from some random kid at some random college asking for resources. They don't think resources exist at their college. I'll Google some stuff, I'll send them all the info. It takes me a half an hour, and I've helped a kid. And I've done that for over 100 kids in the last 3 years. And it's that simple. But if your site maps are accurate, these kids can find your resources themselves, and they don't need me. It seems like I told you even just, 2 years ago, I was trying to convince Westmont College that this kid was homeless. As Sarah said yesterday, we're no longer trying to convince administrations this is a problem. They're starting to be ready to tackle the problem. And that to me is a huge watershed moment, and it's freaking fantastic. When the only reason that we went viral was because people were shocked that a homeless college student existed. I do not believe, not only because everyone GoFunds me when they burn their finger, but also because it's part of the media cycle. I feel at the beginning, at back to school and end of school, there's always stories about homeless students in the media. It tends to be exceptionalism now, but we're starting to realize that homeless students are in our schools and our colleges and our higher ed, which is great. Like I said, the convincing is we're getting away from that. And then there's the HV legislation that was introduced to Congress in September. GovTracker says it's got a 1% chance of passing, but I'm rooting for it. And then there's conferences like these that just keep coming up. We're doing this work. It's new work, but we're doing it together, and every time I'm at one of these conferences, I came to my conclusions based on my lived experiences and the kids that I'm working with. Y'all are coming to your conclusions by what's happening at your institutions or like science, and we're all coming to the same conclusions. We're all converging on the same path, even though we're getting there the same way. Like I said while we were trying to get the PowerPoint together, do you guys realize what we're doing? We are forging a path, and there's so many commonalities, and I'm so proud of everyone because now we know that that we're all doing this work, and we're figuring out how to do the work, and we're collaborating instead of competing. So clap for yourself. It'll make me feel better. So is that one good? All right. So I've got a 3-prong approach. You got to prove need. Dr. Crutchfield made me cry last year at the Chancellor's office for Cal State University because she produced the first data, her phase 1 study with Dr. Jen, presented data that affirmed everything that I'd been seeing and I'd been seeing in my kids. And now we keep getting more and more data points, and it's no longer, hey, I used to be homeless and this is the program I built because I think it'll work and maybe you should do it at your college. There's science. Yes. Next up, you have to provide the proper programming. Everybody's been talking about student-driven programming, and that is so true. You can't just tell them that they want pink sheets. You have to ask them what color they want and if they want t-shirt or flannel. You have to do this. You can't just tell them what they need. Yes, you have to anticipate the stuff that they do need to know, but you can't just order them around. And a big part of it, and this is all stuff we're talking about, is you have to promote your resources. And somehow I managed to make this the 3 Ps of homelessness and higher ed. Promote your resources. Marketing and messaging are crucial. It's the only way that you can really get them to access the resources and destigmatize. My nursing student, they were doing something in her sorority. I don't do Greek, so I don't really understand. There might have been candles and hoods, I don't know. But they were all sharing secrets, and she decided to come forward and tell her sorority sisters about her homelessness, and she never had told anyone but her boyfriend. And what ended up happening was another one of her sorority sisters told her about her homelessness. It's basically the same as running into cute-ass Randy at the motel like I did in like 9th grade. So they're all bonding with each other and starting to learn. So I promise I'm almost done. It's hard enough for us to help. It's hard enough to ask for help. Again, you have to make these resources discoverable, you have to make them sexy, and you have to make them for everyone. Remember that this whole starving student rite of passage nonsense that has been, a standard in our society for as long as I've been alive, that's disgusting. It's not funny that we expect kids to live off of fried noodles boiled in water with a seasoning packet. That shouldn't be the joke. It shouldn't be that you're just eating peanut butter. Because that's a stereotype for kids of means, too. And it shouldn't be. So there's a universality to this that doesn't just make it for you gotta be poor to access. You always have to keep the stigma in mind. Again, being a dead horse, brand things in a normalizing way. Make things less about the labels and make it about food pantries for everyone. Housing options during breaks for everyone. And just to give you guys a little indication, I've given a lot of you my cards and you keep telling me how sexy they are. The top logo is what I use to talk to people like you. The lower one is what I use to brand things that are student-driven because it doesn't say homeless on it. You see the difference? That's it? Yeah? All right. All right, so, one last thing. Engage and empower your students. Again, they're going to help you build the program you need by showing you what they want and what they really need. They'll tell you what's working, they'll tell you what doesn't, and they'll help you not only prioritize services, but make them more effective. I do check-ins with all of my kids. Honestly, they continuously say, we ran out of money to throw at them a long time ago, but the mentorship program still exists. And continuously, when I ask them what their favorite part of the program is, it's the retreat, and it's my mentorship. And I'm not saying it's just me, but it's that relationship is what they need more. These kids are building Homeless to Higher Ed with me, and all they talk about is how they can't wait to be alumni because they want to graduate, but also because they want to help others. So about that Toblerone. Now, like I said, Sylvia gave me that chocolate to help me quit smoking, and I'm still totally smoking. And it makes you wonder, again, California, you know the punchline here, but it makes you wonder, how come I didn't quit? And the reason why, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why I haven't quit smoking, but the reason why Sylvia's method in particular, as well-intended as it was, didn't work is because I hate Toblerone. If she'd offered me Reese cups, if she'd asked me what I liked, maybe this whole candy method would have worked. And with that in mind, you've all got buckets of candy that have every kind of candy you could possibly imagine. Pick something. Give yourself some choice, just like you should give your students choices. And that's the end.